The Northeast DuBois School Corporation is starting a new feasibility study. Why they're doing it and what they hope to learn. Plus, the Beaver Lake Spillway project will also have a lake management part to it. And Purdue Extension educator Jan Dugan discusses water as a better beverage choice tonight on Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin with the Northeast DuBois School Corporation. Students and parents will soon get the chance to give their input on where the district is now and what it should be in the future. Last night, Superintendent Bill Hoaxsong opened the first major public discussion about a feasibility study. Hoaxsong says the study is needed as the district is working with a general fund that is being funded at the same level as it was back in 2008 when the Great Recession began. The district's advertised 2016 budget is just over $10.75 million in all, with a bit more than $6.5 million in the general fund. Hoaxsong says the pinch is largely being felt in terms of staff. He says a referendum is not out of the question sometime in the next few years, but there are no definitive answers for solving the district's financial concerns as of this point.
That's why we're doing the feasibility, is because we want our public to be involved and our citizens and decide what is it that they want. Do they want something like that to keep us going? Do they want a reconfiguration of our schools? Do they want class sizes to be 30 kids? You know, what is it that they'll tolerate and allow us to make a change because status quo is not working?
Hoaxsong says a large part of the problem has been changes in the state funding formula to where the money follows the student. He says the biggest problem that creates is decisions on whether or not to cut teachers in order to save money. Hoaxsong says though much has been done to help the district's finances, this study should bring fresh ideas.
We feel like we've been cutting forever, and what's happening is we're closing the deficit. We're not there. To give you an idea, 3 years ago when I started that first year, we were in deficit financing by about $630,000. Projected for this coming year, we're going to be about $270,000. So we've made great progress, but it's still not enough. And I don't know, we're just running out of ideas.
Now, the study is being done by administrator assistants of Brookston, Indiana. The group is led by Steve Wittenauer, who founded the company back in early 2008 after his retirement as Benton Community School Corporation Superintendent in December of 2007. Wittenauer says Northeast DuBois is one of his company's first ventures into southern Indiana schools. Wittenauer says he responded to an ad from the Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents that Hoaxsong posted seeking a firm to do a feasibility study. Wittenauer says he has a strong impression of the district thus far.
Well, I see, and what I've heard are the people in this community are really proud of their school corporation. I think they'll be very open to the questions that we're going to ask them. And I think they'll probably be pretty supportive of whatever we come up with in the end because it will have their input.
The Northeast DuBois study will mostly be overseen by two newer members of the administrator assistance staff. They are retired Washington Community Schools Superintendent Bruce Hatton and Steve Sontag, a retired business manager for Clark Pleasant Schools. The cost of this study will be $20,000. Hoaxsong is hopeful that administrator assistants will finish their work by the end of December with a formal presentation of their findings at the board's January meeting. A Jasper man was placed under arrest early this morning on a pair of misdemeanor charges after he was accused of ransacking vehicles in the parking lot at Memorial Hospital. Jasper police say at around 5:15 this morning they were contacted by the hospital's security department about an individual opening vehicle doors and going through vehicles in the parking lot. Police say the suspect, 53-year-old Mark Sanders, was located outside of CVS along West 6th Street. They say they found Sanders eating crackers and later discovered that he had taken the crackers from the pharmacy without paying for them. Sanders admitted to police that he went through vehicles at Memorial but told officers he didn't take anything out of them. Sanders is charged with a Class A misdemeanor count of theft and a Class B misdemeanor count of unauthorized entry into a motor vehicle. He was lodged in the DuBois County Security Center. The Du Bois County Prosecutor's Office says sentencing has begun for defendants involved with the recently completed Operation Double Trouble. The prosecutor's office says 24-year-old Bryce Sadler of Jasper was the first Operation Double Trouble defendant to plead guilty. Under terms of the agreement, Sadler is pleading guilty to a level 5 felony for dealing methamphetamine. He will serve 2 years at the Indiana Department of Corrections, a sentence that runs consecutively with a 180-day sentence that Sadler is currently serving on Class A misdemeanor counts for possession of paraphernalia and possession of a handgun without a license. Now, the sentencing for Operation Double Trouble defendants will wind up being shorter than it was for those involved with its predecessor, Operation Big Brother. Deputy Prosecutor Beth Sermersheim says that's due to changes in Indiana's criminal code that were implemented last year. Sermersheim says those changes can make things a bit frustrating for her office.
Most drug dealing offenses in the past were Class B felonies, which were 6 to 20-year potential penalties. Now, a lot of them, there are ranges, but a lot of them are charged as level 5 felonies with penalties ranging from only 1 to 6 years. I hope that in the future the legislature will bring back the stiffer penalties for drug dealers.
Of course, the arrest of suspects in Operation Double Trouble took place back on June 4th. 18 people in all were served arrest warrants as part of 2 rounds of arrests on drug dealing charges in Du Bois and Spencer counties. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office says another Operation Big Brother case has been resolved as well. 34-year-old Ryan Gresham of Ferdinand pled guilty last Tuesday on a Class B felony for dealing in a Schedule III controlled substance. He will serve 12 years in all as part of that plea deal. 8 of those years will be through the Indiana Department of Corrections, with the rest to be on work release. Though the spillway at Beaver Lake will likely be rebuilt in the near future to raise the water level, lot owners are also calling for a lake management plan to be a guide for the future. Of course, Monday evening, the Jasper Utility Service Board opted to contribute $50,000 to the spillway reconstruction. The total cost of the project will be around $334,000, with the work to be done by Jasper-based Crimp Construction. Now, the Friends of Beaver Lake group is among those pushing for a long-term lake management plan. Brad Pope has helped to lead the group's efforts to date. He says the lake management idea began to grow the longer he spent trying to figure out what was wrong with the lake's current water level.
With all my research trying to get to the bottom of this, I did end up talking to the Indiana 15 grant agency, and at that time she did explain to me, because I was there for a lengthy amount of time, that there were assistance for things such as lake and river enhancements, and so we talked through that quite a bit while I spent some time over there trying to find information, and she was very helpful, and she did suggest that if we can get past this spillway project, to come back and see her, and there's a lot of good that can come out of this.
Pope says the plan will start right away. He says work will likely be done on a volunteer basis with help from city officials as needed. Pope says getting a lake management plan put in place sooner rather than later can only help over the long run.
The sooner we get done paying it back, the sooner we're going to get matching funds from the government. So that's why I'm trying to push to let's get past this the spillway project with the lake management fund, because as soon as we get past that, our $50 turns into maybe 100 or 150, maybe even 200. So there's some neat things that can happen.
Pope says the plans would also include work that could benefit the public. That would include improvements to the shelter house and other public facilities at Beaver Lake. Of course, there are still several meetings coming up before the spillway project will officially be funded. The next such meeting is the Jasper City Council, which is underway this evening at Jasper City Hall. And finally tonight, the long fall from grace is complete for former Subway spokesman Jared Fogle. Earlier today, Fogle pled guilty in federal court in Indianapolis on 1 count of traveling to engage in illicit sexual conduct with a minor and 1 count of distribution and receipt of child pornography. Court documents say Fogle allegedly paid a 17-year-old girl who he found online for sex while he was staying at the Plaza Hotel in New York City in November of 2012. Of course, federal agents raided Fogle's Zionsville home last month as part of this investigation. Under terms of a plea agreement, Fogle will also pay a total of $1.4 million in restitution to 14 minor victims, $100,000 to each victim. In addition, Fogle will have to register as a sex offender and undergo treatment for sexual disorders. Fogle's sentence will be no less than 5 years in prison and no more than 12.5 years behind bars. Of course, Fogle spent more than 15 years as the public face of Subway restaurants after shedding more than 200 pounds thanks to eating the restaurant's sandwiches. During Fogle's time, Subway tripled its number of locations and became the world's largest restaurant chain. Subway suspended the partnership back in July, and earlier today, the chain stated that the partnership has been terminated. All right, coming up after the break, today's rain will give way to tomorrow's nicer day, and later, Jan Dugan returns for another episode of Inform. We're back after this.